And we are live. Welcome to the Connected for Real podcast. I'm Rebbetzin Bat-Chen Grossman, and today with us is Aviva. Aviva, introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Aviva Yoselis. I'm a medical advocate, and I have my own company that helps people navigate the medical healthcare system, all types of issues in Israel, for the most part.
Cool. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a little bit of like behind the scenes. I just came back from the tragedy of my sister-in-law, Tela Gez. So I am going to be as normal and upbeat as I can, but there may be times when I'm just like not focused or not myself, and that's okay. We're going to be human here. Also, this is the reason why we did not drop this episode on time because, as you know, my podcast is built in a framework of the four pillars: God, marriage, business, and you. And we usually take the topic of the month and just talk about that topic from the four different angles. So we had health and God, health and marriage, and then we were going to have health and business, but that's when the tragedy happened. So we are a little bit delayed, but we didn't want to miss it. So this is coming a little bit late in the rhythm of the podcast, but still, it's really important for us to not keep you hanging. And so that was just a little bit of background behind the scenes. I see your face with like the four pillars, and you're like, So yeah, I love the fact that my business has four pillars.
Yeah, I like that construct. I mean, I heard your other podcast, and I heard that. I like that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really, really cool. So let's talk about, how did you get into the health world? What brought you here? And how did you start being an advocate to help other people?
Right. Okay. So I actually, like, for as long as I can remember myself, I have been interested in health, like women's health. Like, I remember very clearly my mom sat me down when I was like in third grade, and she was like very science biology oriented, and nobody had ever told her how women's bodies work and why you get your period and things like that. And she sat me down and she like drew me a little diagram, and she showed me how things work. And like, it just made, first of all, I was fascinated, and it made like perfect sense to me. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. And then I ended up talking to my friends, like before I even had my period or was anywhere close to it. I was sitting with my friends and explaining to them how their bodies worked and what to expect. And and it just made sense to me. And I loved the field, and I decided in high school that I was going to go to medical school. I wanted to be a doctor. And so I went to college and I started pre-med. And then I went to South America. I ended up staying there for a year. I decided not to go back to college. I went to work for health services in a Spanish-speaking community in Philadelphia. And then I worked there, and I was like, okay, now I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to go to be a midwife. So I applied to go back to college, and I went on vacation in Israel for a month because I was feeling a little bit burned out. I re-met my husband, which we had known each other before, and then we lost touch, and I re-met him. And long story short, I decided to move to Israel, left my midwifery plans, and ended up moving to Israel and getting married and having children.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So I did get a master's very soon after, when I was pregnant with my first child. I started a master's in public health because I realized that if I wanted to stay in the field of healthcare in Israel, like I really needed to get a degree in Israel.
Right.
So, and that like opened me up to the whole world of health education and health promotion and epidemiology, which is a word that nobody knew until the COVID epidemic.
Yes. It's so funny. It's like, I was using Zoom for my graphic design work, like almost on a daily basis, meeting people and clients and trying to figure out like how to design certain things and what's needed and whatever. And then like suddenly with the whole world got on board, it was like, oh.
Right. I do. So I got into the field of health advocacy about 10 years ago in Israel, because I saw that people were not accessing the benefits, and they weren't accessing the healthcare system that they needed to be. And at that point, I wanted to make sure that anybody who was an English speaker in Israel could have these services. So I I always like, I did telehealth before telehealth was like, a thing. So I like 97% of my clients, like I've never actually met them,
Right.
and in person. Some of them I actually haven't even seen because, it was like telephone and not everybody had Zoom initially, etc. So,
Right.
and I have like a lot of older clients who, like I was like talk to their foreheads a lot, or like, they can't figure out how to turn on their camera. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. But I'm so proud of them, by the way. If you're older and you're figuring this out, good for you because it's not easy.
No,
For
it
people
is
who
not.
grew up, if like you're born with a cell phone, that's one thing, but you really know life before this, and it's amazing how quickly things change and how you're able to stay on top of it is
No.
very, very impressive. So
I
give
don't know how
yourself
to take a selfie. I don't know anything about many things on my phone. I hand it to my kids, and I'm not. My father, I'm 120. He's 92, and he taught himself how to go on Facebook and how to do Zoom, and like he's Mr. Cell Phone. So, we actually had to take him off of TikTok because I said, like, he was like sitting there, like scroll. God, I was like, okay, Dad, you're like a teenager in the back of the car. I actually told him, like, look out the window. He's like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
My husband says if you ever have any tech issues, get the youngest person in the room and ask them to fix it.
completely. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So now you're that person for people who just don't know what to expect in the healthcare system. Tell us a little bit about what is actually behind the scenes of the things that most of us just don't know.
So, first of all, there's just sort of like your general taking care of your health, like the sort of they use the word like preventive, but you're really not preventing things because we're not God. It's like things are going to happen to you that are out of your control. And even though I think that we'd like to think if I do A, B, and C, like if I eat these certain foods and I do these certain things, then I'll be protected and I'll be fine. And it doesn't work that way. Like how many of us know, God forbid, whatever, somebody who has cancer, like, age 18, or somebody who has a heart attack in their mid 40s, So there's a big difference between having a healthy lifestyle, which I think is important. I'll talk about that in a second. But like there are just things that we need to put into place that are called like early detection. And that's really what I push. I mean, unfortunately, people, when they come to me, often it's like they're already in a crisis, so they miss that part. But if I get people who
Right.
are who come to me, like who are older, let's say they're in fine health and they've moved to this country and they want me to help them make their appointments or find their doctors. So then we focus on, like, for women, like, are you getting your routine mammography? Because, I spent a large part of my career raising awareness about breast cancer, early detection, especially among Jewish women. But the truth is that it's still one of the biggest cancers, for women in general. And, it's like we all focus on, the catastrophic, often what we worry about, which is reasonable, especially I think given our day and age and what happens. But statistically, and that's usually what I work on because I come from that, epidemiology background and I can't help it. Statistically, it's like what's going to get us, are these like chronic cancers and aging. Those are the things that we really sort of, I wouldn't say worry about because I don't believe in worrying about it. I don't think that's helpful. But like, just doing things. So for women, it's like making sure that you get your mammography once a year. And it's making sure that you go to the gynecologist to be examined, not just when you like are pregnant or just had a baby, which a lot of women, realize. They don't realize that like you have to go to the gynecologist even when you're not, pregnant. It's making sure that you go to the dermatologist once a year to have the moles checked, like
Right.
to, because so many of these things, if they're caught early, like really are manageable, and they're dealt with like in a local fashion, and you can handle it. It's when things aren't managed and when they're not dealt with that it can really escalate into something that is, a crisis,
Right.
and that really affects your life. So those are the things that I really emphasize, with people. And making sure that, we talk about having a good diet, and also making sure people do routine blood tests to make sure, testing about diabetes, which is really the disease that like no one like no one talks about it because it's not like, I don't know, interesting as it were, but like that's really like that is a real problem, And I think people are like, okay, well, what I get, I'll take a pill, but you don't want to be at the place in your life when you have to take a pill to manage, It's like as you get older, you want to enjoy your relationships, you want to enjoy being with people, you want to like, I mean, I'm very blessed. Like I have 2 little grandchildren.
Ah.
And, you see yourself like, okay, I just want to spend time with them, and I want to have energy and be healthy doing it.
So, is there anything in the system that encourages these types of proactive ways of staying healthy?
So, first of all, just the test that I mentioned, first of all, in Israel, they're covered like in the basket of services. And I know in America, they start mammographies much earlier than they do in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is like anything else, like you have to be your own case manager. You have to be on top of it. So I encourage people always to like sort of like you've got your checklist and you have a day. I mean, I have many things going on, and I very much believe in calendars and scheduling. So I have administrative day, which is like a few hours every Tuesday morning, and that's when I make appointments for myself and other people. That's when I fill in forms if they needed to be completed. Like that's if I have to make a phone call to a doctor or something like that. So for myself and for my family, because I, also manage their care.
Right. Yeah.
So
No, I once heard Rebecca Saltzman. She's
yeah,
an organizer.
yeah.
So she says she makes all the appointments around the kid's birthday because that way anything that has to be done once a year is taken care of in that month of when they were born. And so like she doesn't have to try to remember when was the last time you had went to the dentist, when was the last time you had a cleaning, when was the last
Yeah,
time you went whatever. It's like she already knows that all those things were taken care of around that birthday. So it's easy to remember, which is really cute.
yeah. Like I have reminders in my calendar, like, okay, make an appointment for this or make an appointment, but I always tell people the best thing to do is when you're in the office and there's going to be like a 6-month follow-up, make the appointment then.
Right.
Don't wait and say like, oh, when I get home, I'm going to do, because then you never do. And then you wait. And by the time you wait, like so much more time has passed.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing I'm just going to make a plug for, since I'm already here, is telling people, men, women, doesn't matter, to do a routine colonoscopy, which I've told this to people and they're like, what? so because like that, so it's a little bit more, let's say, invasive than it would be like if you just did like a stool test. But the thing is, like, if they find something, because it's like they go into the lower intestine, because colon cancer is again a very widespread cancer that affects us, and it's also easily controlled if it's found. So again, it's not one of these things like you can't prevent these things from happening. You can have the healthiest lifestyle and unfortunately still find one of these things. So then you do the colonoscopy, and then if you're a clean bill of health, then it's like once every 10 years. So it's a little bit of investment.
Oh.
But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I've known too many people who've passed away from colon cancer at young ages, and this is like a way to, yeah,
Right.
to avoid it. So.
Oh, really interesting. What I was thinking about is more towards like I heard, and I don't know if this is true, but it's on my list of things to look into.
Okay.
That there's an app now that you can get a discount for going to the gym, or that you can get discounts on all sorts of things that are preventative. And that's what I was going to ask
Mm,
you about. Like there's things that people just don't know about, and even if they hear about them, it's hard to actually follow up and do, but
yes.
make it a lot more doable.
Yes. So for sure. So for specifically in Israel, like each of the Kupat Cholim, like the HMO, not like at least 2 of them, they have these apps where you can go in and you can track your eating regimen and your exercise, and you can get discounts. And some of them have like subsidized personal trainer who come to your house to put it like a personal plan for you. And
Cool.
then there's like a ton of international apps where you can like, anywhere from like tracking your calories to giving you exercise routines. And, I mean, it's amazing today. Like if you want to take charge of your own health in terms of like, eating and exercise, then there's so many options out there. You just have to find which one works for you. Just the thing is that, you know, you need to do it. That's like at the end of the day, no one else is going to do it for you but you. And I think that's the hard thing. So yeah, so diet, and I mean, like, I can't tell you when I give my lectures, about women's health or health navigation. So I always say nobody ever knows like what's real and what's not, because you'll read a study like have a glass of wine once a week, once a day, and like that'll reduce breast cancer. Or like I saw this one study out of France once, like have dark chocolate a square once, and that's going to be like great. That's going to prevent diabetes or whatever. I'm like,
I highly recommend dark chocolate for everyone. And then once you buy it and you realize you don't like it, you just come and deliver it here. We will happily eat it for you. I'm
which I
totally
definitely think the enjoyment pos is very important, but like the health benefits, they're
No,
still
I
up in
know,
the
but
air.
like I remember my grandmother had a bar of 80% chocolate, and she would take one square every day. And I would come and ask for some. It's like, no, it's my medicine. I don't like it. I eat it because it's medicine. And I'm like, oh man, because I love this stuff. Ah,
And you still eat it? You still eat the 80% dark chocolate?
I mean, a friend of mine for the morning period brought me 90% chocolate, and she knew it was the exact thing I needed. It was the exact thing I needed. I love it. I love the dark chocolate. Why? Because the more I cut out sugar, and I'm
Mm,
not sugar free by any means. I love sweet stuff. But the more I veer towards healthy sugars, like, the dates and
yeah.
fruits and whatever, and the less I eat junk, the more actual things taste good,
Yeah, for sure.
like
Yeah.
you taste the sugar in the almonds, or you taste the flavor in the cucumbers. Like it's very interesting, but
Yeah.
it's really just about like clearing those numbins. I think that's
Yeah.
pretty much what I think of it as. I make cookies, and then my friends say they're not sweet enough, and I think they're just way too sweet and I can't eat them. I'm like, ugh. But
Which
like
is
I
great. I mean, that's where you want to be, Like, I mean, yeah.
And then, now we were just going through all this emotional eating, and we're all like, you're eating and talking about how this is just emotional eating. We're emotionally eating. Like, we're all just sitting around, like, you know, eating. But the things I was craving were things that weren't bad for me. Like, I wasn't going to be sorry that I ate the emotional eating. Like, even though,
Yeah.
I did eat the cookie and I ate the cake and I ate the muffin or whatever. I ate one,
Yeah.
or I
So
ate
that's the
half.
thing. Yeah.
Like
If
it
you
just
can
like
stop.
it was enough.
So when you eat the chocolate, can you eat just one square and then you stop?
Anytime, like when we were growing up, we were six, right? Because it was my parents and four kids. And my mother would buy this like, really nice Milka chocolate, like the purple. That was what we had in like, wherever we were. So she would get that, and it had 6 lines of 4 cubes. So each person in the family would get a line of 4, and the whole bar was done. Like that's all there was. There was 6 cubes per person. And I just thought that was normal. Like I grew up enjoying my 4 cubes. Some of
Right.
us would like share cubes. Like I don't feel like having so many today. You can have mine, and then the next time, like hey, can I have one of yours? I'm really in the mood. Like it was basically business of like, can I have your cube or not? It was really like max 5 cubes, per event. And then I started working at this office. I was a graphic designer before I was a marriage coach. I started working in this office, and the lady showed up with an extra large chocolate bar. Like one of those like extra big ones, not the ones my parents bought that was family size. It was like the extra big. And she showed up and she put in the middle and she said, anybody who wants can take, happily. Like I bought it for everyone. It's fine. I'm like, there's 3 of us, right? It's like not that many people. And so I took a line of 4 and I put it next to me and I fully enjoyed it. And suddenly I look over and I realize that the girl who bought it is almost at the end of the full thing. Like she ate more than half of this bar. And
Mm.
it blew me away. I never in my life saw anybody eating so much chocolate. But I
Yeah,
think it's one of these like paradigms that like it's just how you live or how you grew up and that's all you
totally,
know. And then
totally.
suddenly it's like, whoa, you can do that? Like you're even allowed to do that? Like
And, and you
I
were an
didn't
adult. You were an adult.
I
It
was
wasn't like, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
was an adult with two children. Like that's how far we're talking.
yeah,
But, like, it never occurred to me because anybody who ever showed up with chocolate, it was, like, either the mini things, and, of course, like, if you have a mini, it's just, like, a personal size, it makes sense,
yeah.
and or, like, there's, like, the regular size, and then you split in half and you give your friend, and it's, like,
Right, right,
normal sizes, that those, like, felt normal to me, but
right.
that was an experience that blew my mind,
And you
and
realize like it's a totally different, people are having a totally different perception of like, I didn't even really understand that you could order pizza until I was in college. Like it wasn't like I didn't know that was a con. I mean, I grew up in suburbia of South Jersey, and but like my parents, I mean, my father, like they're from the Depression, like it wasn't a thing. I mean, it was just like wasn't you didn't do that. It was like you went out to a restaurant once a year. It was like either birthday or Mother's Day or something. And like like again, it was ridiculous. Like I saw commercials, I saw like why didn't, but it didn't occur to me because it was like so far. It's funny how you like my daughter says, because after my third child was born, I was getting sick all the time. And I went to so many doctor, whatever. Finally went to this naturopath and he was like, you have to stop eating processed sugar. Like your insulin levels are bouncing up and down. Like I didn't have, I was young, but so I cut out sugar probably for like 5, 7 years. I mean, then I had my
wow.
fifth child and that sort of fell out the window. So I didn't, but I was like so my daughter was growing up then. So she, in her mind, it was like mothers don't eat sugar. Like they just don't have they don't eat those desserts. So like remember she was in high school and like her friend's mother, she saw her eating cake and she was like, that's strange, mothers don't eat.
So I have a friend who studied she was a therapist and she specialized in addictions. And
Mm,
part of what they had to do was they had to cut out sugar during the time they were studying addictions so that
wow.
they can understand what the person they are dealing with is going through.
That is brilliant. That is such
Brilliant.
a brilliant. I mean, everybody. That's
It blew
yeah,
my mind that the
yeah,
people who created this program were so smart that they got you to experience something that you can almost not experience if you never were addicted to actual
yeah,
substances.
yeah.
But the addiction to sugar is the exact same thing as any other addiction in the
Completely.
ways that you have to deal with it. And she said she couldn't do it because even if you cleaned out your whole house from sugar, you go to an event and there's
Yep.
sugar, and
Yep.
you go with your friends and there's sugar, and there's the
Yep.
peer pressure of sugar, and there's
Exactly.
all the things. And she says
Totally.
this is exactly what the people are going through when they're addicted to the things that they're addicted to. Their friends are going to pull them down.
Yeah.
Their whole social circles are about this.
Right. Right. You're right. It's a brilliant plan on their part because it is. So so when people ask me like, okay, so you're a health professional, what should I do? So, obviously you can't tell someone cut out sugar because it's really impossible. And also it's not like cigarettes that it has like a warning label on it. Not that people don't smoke because they do, but
Right.
like, at least everyone agrees that we know that smoking is bad for you. And so we have a warning label on the cigarettes, but it's like, it's not like your sugar bag has a warning label on it, even though like it obviously should. So
Even
I
worse
tell
than
people,
that, I think the worst part is, I had a conversation with the ganenet. What is that in English?
the
The teacher.
kindergarten teacher.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
kindergarten teacher. I had a whole thing back and forth with her. I said, I would really like to request that we don't give the kids so much sugar in
Yeah.
school, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And she says, but we can't do anything. This is just what we need to
Yeah.
do for
Yeah.
birthdays, for
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
weekly, Ima Shel Shabbat. Every
Yeah.
week we get junk food. And I said, why? I don't understand this entire thing. Like, you as a teacher are looking at me going, "You're the mother, you are the authority, you decide." And now I'm telling you, you are the teacher, you are the
Yeah.
authority in this room, you decide. Can you just announce we are all deciding that we're not going to give our kids, like, let's just say, like, no toffee, like the
Yeah.
toffee is terrible. It gets
And
stuck. It's
also it's for the
disgusting.
teeth, the dentist. But I
It's
know
awful.
I stopped
Anyway,
having
I
that
just like
argument. I stopped
I
trying
just
to have that.
requested, I'm like, even if we have to give them everything, like, let's give them whatever they want, except one thing. Like, let's pick the worst thing and just say no. Because
Right.
like you say, we're not gonna give our kids cigarettes. Like, but that's
Yeah.
what everybody's doing. It's like, no, you don't go to first grade and get cigarettes. You're not. It just doesn't make sense. But like, socially here in Israel, especially, this is one thing that's really, really difficult. And I even had a teacher tell me that I need to relax because I'm putting my kid in a situation where they want it, but they know they shouldn't have it. So if I just tell them that it's okay, then the kid won't feel so bad. And I was like,
Wow.
well,
And you're like, that is a parenting error on so many levels. I can't even tell you.
I'm like, I'm really sorry I'm making your life so miserable, but like, I'm the mother, and I don't think that telling my daughter that she should have the chocolate, that not the chocolate, chocolate's allowed. Chocolate is
Right.
food. It's just like my husband says, if Chazal, if
Sages.
the sages would have had coffee and chocolate, they would have said it was not allowed on Passover. But because they didn't have that yet, they didn't make that part of the, kitniot. So that is the reason why chocolate and coffee are always different than anything else we talk about, because chocolate has its own little section over here of like, chocolate's actually real. It's real food. It really gives comfort. It is allowed. So
Well, I
please,
think you I think you hit on the important is the comfort. I think that as like a society, we want to give comfort to little kids. We want to give them a reward, and we don't know how to do it unless it involves like something that is, that sugar that's like that's soothing, that's like comforting. We words aren't enough, actions aren't enough, little prizes aren't enough. It's the soothing nature of sugar that we can't. I mean, to go back to what you're saying, like my children, I got a call once from my son who was in fourth grade, who was at a birthday party and called me and he said, Ima, can I have half a cup of Coke? Everybody's drinking the soda. Can I have I mean, like, what a better parenting moment to know that like your child like is so internalized that soft drinks are just like not. I mean, it sounds like terrible, but it wasn't like an abusive situation. It was just like he, like he just realized that it wasn't something. I mean, now they're all adults and they all, feel very comfortable about drinking soda when they. But I think that like
I tell them that I worked so hard to wean myself off of Coke, like really, because
you
I
you have
used
one of
to,
those Coke addictions, really?
I was when we were growing up, Coke and Sprite were like, those were the treats. You had to have that. It was
Yeah,
normal.
I wasn't allowed. As like my mom was like way
Really?
ahead of her time, way ahead of her time. She was like, it was not in the house.
See that?
Yeah.
So we grew up, and socially also everybody was having it. So I liked it. I thought it was delicious.
It is delicious.
It's I no, no, now
Now, yeah,
every so
yeah,
often we're like at a wedding or something, I'll like taste Coke and I'll be like,
it's too
ugh,
much.
ugh.
Yeah,
Because once you're off of it, you can't go back. It's like there's
yeah,
this real understand, like your brain finally clicks in that it's
yeah,
not
yeah,
yummy.
yeah.
But like I explained to my kids that I used to be addicted. I think it was delicious, and it was because I belonged, we were social, it was the way that you connected, it was the thing that was represented as like the prize, the thing that you
Yeah.
get for being good, whatever. So there's a lot of things that it meant for me, and I'm very open about it. Like, I worked so hard to get off of it, but if you find it delicious for some reason, and I make this like really gross face, then like go ahead, I'm not gonna make you miserable. But then they drink and they're like, yeah, it's not even that good. So thank God. Thank
Right.
God.
I mean, there is always the balance of like, you don't want to make something like forbid it so much that then it becomes a temptation to your kid, you know. On the other hand, very much boundaries for food, boundaries for sugar, you know. I mean, in general, boundaries are an important part of parenting, you know. And I mean, it's definitely something like sugar is in everything that we eat. Even foods that aren't sugary have sugar in them, and we know it's an issue. So anyway, sort of going back to the center of like
Yeah.
when you're focusing, I people always ask me, I'm like, look, there's not one diet that you can do. And it's like, it's just being aware of your eating and what you're consuming is really important, and reducing the sugars as you can, eating real foods as much as possible and not processed foods, and exercise.
Yeah.
There is like exercise is just like, you know, you see all the I mentioned before, like you see all these trends in research, and I spend a lot of my time reading scientific articles because I also do scientific writing, and I write articles, and I also happen to love it. So I read, and like you see all the time these new theories, and these, you have to do this, you have to eat that, you have to do, but like what you see consistently over the past 30 years is people who have like a normal diet and people who exercise regularly, their health is preserved. As you know, obviously there's no guarantees, but in general, statistically, better than those people who don't have those two items, you know?
So now I want to get into something really interesting because, our title is health and business, but also this is true in business, this is true in everything that you do. I feel like when you try to be perfect and
Mm,
try to do it how it's supposed to be, it never really works because you end up like stopping before you even start. It's just not good enough. Like, I think about business. I'm like, I design a sales page. It's never good enough. It never goes live. I'm sitting there just sitting on it and overthinking it and, agonizing over the whole
totally.
perfection thing. And with sugar, I'm really into like the 20 80 20 rule where it's like as long as 80% of the food you're eating is mostly good and is, vegetables, fruits, whatever, proteins, foods that you can, you know, you can read the
Right. The
non-labels,
ingredients. Right.
the actual ingredients without the
Right.
label. Then what if 20% of your stuff was junk food? Big deal. And so, like I said, even though we ate emotional eating and we did, like go crazy with all these like junks, it was fine because we had this sort of balance thing going. And so, like, again, also with exercise, I feel like if I wait until I can exercise 3 times a week for a full hour each day and blah, 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 then I would never do anything.
Yeah.
And I know for myself, there are weeks that it's just like all I could do is one time yoga this entire week. It's just all there is.
Yep.
Or,
Yeah.
or all I could do this week is take a walk for 20 minutes. I want that to be enough. I want that to be okay because I don't want you to like, sort of fall over yourself trying to do it right.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. And the whole like have to do it right, perfection, like that is never how I have operated my life, and for sure not my business. And anything in life, being a mother, being a business owner, being like, it's good enough. It's good enough, and it's putting you in the right direction. And I think so much of it is more like having an awareness, like, look, my youngest child is 15. So my flexibility in terms of time is completely different than when, my oldest was 15.
Right.
So I think that it's important to have like, you know, do I have 10 minutes? Can I do an exercise video? Like, I don't believe like you don't have to go to the gym, and you don't have to do things that are complicated, and you don't have to hire a personal trainer. Like, can I walk instead of taking the car? Can I
Right.
take the stairs instead of taking the elevator? Like, there's small choices like that, but they add up. They really do. Like, I've got 10 minutes. Can I do 10 minutes of yoga if that works for you? Like, I I always say, like, when I'm older, I'll get into yoga. Like, I just has not clicked for me, yoga at all. I have tried. I do not, yoga and me, we're not buddies yet. I don't know. Maybe sometime there will be, but
That's
I love to
hysterical. So, do
dance.
you like Pilates?
I do like Pilates. I can't say like I do it, enough, but I do Pilates with other things. But like I love to dance. So I'll do like, like a dance video, or I do like, for me, doing YouTube videos, like that works, like I know, because I have friends who go to the gym now. It's not realistic. I'm not going to do that. But I know for myself at this point, like it's a mental health thing as well, It's not just like I'm investing for the future. It's like that half an hour walk, I find, especially now with everything that's going on, and the chaos that we have that we are living in a bit, in Israel, and I think also globally. I feel like you need time to like check in with yourself, and not do anything else,
Right.
and
Right.
make time. So, sometimes like doing something very physical, like, like a cardio, you're just focusing on doing the motions.
I agree. I was gonna say I swim. Like
Oh, that's amazing.
I found that I get to be in water and it counts as exercise. Like, sure, I'll take it. So I wasn't a swimmer, but maybe like a couple of years ago, well, really 2 years ago, I swam across the Kinneret. That was the first time I really became a swimmer.
Wait, how can you go from not swimming to swimming across the Kinneret? How does
So
that happen?
there was a group of us that weren't comfortable swimming, like across the big pool, like there's laps, and then like
Yeah,
you go to the pool, and what are you gonna do? Just like hang around like the little kids, Like I'm not afraid of water, but I just don't actually feel like I'm capable of getting to the other side of the pool. And we were just hanging out, talking to each other, like we should really like learn to swim again, Like we learned when we were 6.
yeah.
So we hired the swim teacher who teaches the kids to teach us. And that was like, I don't know, a long time ago, probably like 7, 8 years ago. So we did this class and we all learned to swim, and it was like, yay, now we know how to swim. And the teacher said she's so excited about swimming the Kinneret. She wants to do it this year. Let's all do it. And I was like, yeah, right. And I didn't do it that year because I said 7 years ago, but I think I'm warping time because it really was like soon after. My first time was 2 years ago. And this year I did it for the second time because I skipped a year. So
And so
I
it's
guess
after
we're talking.
Corona that you
Yeah.
learned how to
So
swim.
whatever it was, we were like, it was recent. Anyway, so she said she went and did it, and she came back. She's like, it was amazing. They give you bananas and dates on the way so you don't, lose steam, and you just like swim, and there's like all these stops along the way, and it's not hard, and it's really fine, and blah blah
Wait, you
blah.
stopped like what? There's like floating
Yeah,
docks,
there's like
and you
all
and you.
these. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And so she like really got me into it. So I was like, fine, next year I'll do it. And
Wait,
then
so you
next
swim in like full, like modest regalia? Like you had like a swim skirt
No,
and.
they close the beach, like the they close it for us. So it's
Oh, it was a
all,
women's only swim?
yes, and there is like 400 or 500 women doing it.
Wow.
It's like a whole event for raising money for these special needs adults who live independently as part of a community. And every year they build them another thing. So like another house, another like a cafe, a place where they could work, a therapy room, like whatever.
Right,
Every time it's
right.
different. It's very cool. Anyway, I just did it with my daughter last week and it was incredible.
Last week. Wow, it's cold. If it's the beginning of May.
It's no, they always do it the first week of June or the previous week, the last week of May.
Oh yeah, so right, this is the last week. Right. Wow.
Yeah.
And it
So
wasn't cold?
no, it wasn't. It was really a hot day. So yeah. So in order to prepare, I started swimming, you know, I took upon myself twice a week just so that I can really come ready. But the first time I swam across, I couldn't like get to the other side. I'm like, there's no way I'm doing 2 kilometers of this if I can't even do one lap. But the teacher said, like, you just keep going. So the next time I did, 10 laps, and the next time I did 20 laps. And very quickly you get into this rhythm. Like, as soon
Yeah.
as you get past the 20 laps, you start to swim as if nothing happened. But like, it's hard to get to that point.
Yeah,
Like,
it's totally hard to get. You're all talking about how you're like you've taken on a huge thing and you did it. That's amazing.
yeah.
I'm
Yes,
sticking
it's
with my like
actually
10, 20 minutes of exercise. And I mean, I've swum, but I haven't gotten in the pool yet this year because I get cold. I'm very
yeah,
wimpy.
I hear that. I hear that.
That's amazing
Um,
though. That's like such an accomplishment. I mean, for a lot of people, like that's what gets them to do exercise. Like having that goal, like really makes it able for you to put those things in place. Like you're right, you start with 2 laps and then it goes up to 10 laps. But you're like, I'm gonna swim across the Kinneret.
you know what? It's cool because you're part of something bigger. And for me, it's the social part that motivates me. So it's like there's this like a big banquet at the night before, and you get to meet all the other swimmers, and you get, this like really like event. And then the next morning you wake up at 6 a.m. and you go and you get on the bus and they go across and they let you off, and then you cross, you cross the Kinneret and you get to the other side. And then even just through the swim, everybody's cheering each other on, like, hey, are you okay? What's up? Whatever. And it's like you just constantly being social, even
Right.
though swimming is a very boring, non-social thing. So I think that's where I find my balance because I'm such an extrovert and I need a little bit of that, a
Yeah.
lot. And sometimes people like see swim as a very like internal,
Individual.
introverted
Right.
type of, right.
Right.
It's like it's
Right.
not a
Right.
sport you do with people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I came in number 100,
That's
and
amazing.
I'm very proud of myself
You
because
should be.
it's out of like
Wow.
400 and something women. There's a lot of women. So, it's very cool. Very cool.
You have
But
definitely internalized like the whole process there
yeah,
of, incorporating into your life in a way that works for you.
thank God.
It doesn't
But
mean that like every day you're going to feel motivated or even every week you can be like, oh, you know what I'm saying? But like it's in your awareness that this is part of your lifestyle. And that's what I think is so important.
yes, and once the thing is over, I haven't been back in a pool, you
Right.
know?
Right,
Like,
right, right. There is
and then
that is the problem with these like milestones. Is like you do the thing and then yeah.
right. And I don't make it a thing, and it's okay because 2 years ago, as soon as the thing was over and I went back to the pool and I tried practicing, I'm like, this is so boring. Like, why am I doing this? My body was in resistance. I was like, what? So I didn't feel like doing it. So I wasn't hard on myself. I just didn't. And then like, 2 years later, here I am doing it again and I'm totally capable. My body
You
remembers
just
what to
had a
do.
baby a year ago. Didn't you tell me that?
Yeah,
That's
that's why I didn't do
crazy.
that.
Yeah,
I
that
didn't do it
year.
again.
That's
Right.
amazing that you can like get back into that kind of shape and like I feel like after each baby it took me like 2 years for my body to like, put itself back together again.
And then you're already pregnant, so you
Yeah.
can't get back together.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Yeah, I know. But I think back to when I was younger and overwhelmed. I remember like when I was mother of 3 kids, I think it was really the hardest part for me. Like I say having 8 kids is easier than having 3
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I see that
Because
because
that
it's like crowdsourcing. It's like it's like it also you can like divvy it up, and then you've got like it's a totally different type of parenting. Also, like at that point. Yeah, like
exactly. So
yeah,
like having 3 kids and just being one on many is so overwhelming and so difficult. And then you don't really have the skills yet of how to make room for yourself and how to prioritize certain things,
yeah,
and
yeah,
everything feels like it's on fire. There's so many things that I had to learn, but they only came once I finally said I can't do it anymore. And like there's a breaking point where I hope if you're listening and you're in the 3 kid stage, like, please just raise your hand before you break, because
Yeah.
you are exactly where you need to be, in this place of like, there is more that I need to learn, that I need to like really click into.
Yeah.
But I remember myself then, and I
You
remember
need
saying
help.
like,
You need
the
help. That
yeah,
I
so
think like people are afraid to like ask for help, it's like it's okay. It is
right,
totally legitimate. You do not have to do it all by yourself. There is no like it is hard, and then it's okay to, it's important to ask for help. It's not like a failure. It doesn't mean that you're weak, and it doesn't mean that, you don't have it all together.
right.
I think is
Yeah, I'm gonna bring this up even though it's like, feels not related, but when my brother was sitting Shiva for Tzela, he told people, he said she was a therapist and we went to therapy, and I'm not embarrassed to tell you, I actually think it's what she would have wanted you to hear, because it's so important to get the external help that you need in order to have the internal skills that you're going to be using for the rest of your life. So like, sometimes you think like, oh, I should be able to figure it out and whatever. It's like, no, just do yourself a favor and get the right people to give you the right skills so that you can then do it on your own and be
yeah, yeah.
independent. So
Or
it's like,
or delegate, and like that's not going to be the thing that you do, and that's okay. Like that somebody else will take that on, and that is like a reasonable thing.
right. Yeah, but I think, delegate. I'm going to bring up Rebecca Saltzman again because she taught me so much. She came to my retreat. I had a retreat that I ran in Netanya. It was
Wow.
so cool, so cool. It was like, I don't know, 3 years ago already. She was one of the guest speakers, and we talked about delegation. And this is also good for business, so I'm happy we named it business. We're like way off topic.
I know. I'm really
Um,
sorry. I'm sorry.
no, it's all good. Listen, it is what it is. We're going to get back to the topic in a second. But the delegation, she said, make a list of all the things you cannot delegate, like only you can do. And I realized there's a lot of very annoying things up on there. It's like, only I could be mom, only I can be wife, only I can go to the bathroom, only I can eat, only I can exercise. Nobody can do these annoying things for me. And when you realize that's really all you can do, then you start to take responsibility and owning up that this is what you get to do.
Completely.
Because I can delegate, let's say, I don't know what can I delegate? Laundry, right?
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
delegate laundry, but I
Yeah.
can't delegate sitting down to eat
Yeah.
or drinking enough water. Like, I just can't. I can tell
Yeah.
people to like serve me water. Like, I tell my daughters, when I'm nursing, you give me water. I don't care if I didn't ask. If I'm sitting down to nurse, I need to drink. And everybody got into a rhythm already of like, they see me sitting down, they bring me a cup of water. Or I just announce, like, I say, hey, anybody want to bring me water? And I have like 3 cups coming,
That's
because
brilliant.
thank God. It's very nice. But I think it's important that even though you can delegate the thing getting to you, right? You can have someone else make the food for you, but
Yeah.
you have to eat. You
Yeah.
have to be the one to drink. You have to be the one
Yeah.
to exercise.
Yeah.
So those are things that once you realize only you can do them, then you make them a priority.
But you also realize all the things that you are not the only one that has to do, which I think also for mothers and also for business owners is sometimes a very, very difficult thing to let go of, because
Say,
it'll be done.
say
Yeah.
more. Yeah,
No, because it'll be done differently than, let's say, that you would do it. But I think that you're absolutely correct in like bringing back the focus to what I only can do, which is about really caring for yourself, and that there are so many other tasks like the laundry, like, there's women that I know who are like, they won't delegate the laundry because I have to fold it in a certain way. I have to hang it, I have to do it in a certain manner. And or even things like taking out the children. They'll say, well, my husband can't put the kids to bed because he doesn't do it in the routine as if I do it. And I said, well, I mean, that if you're going to do that, then you're just going to close yourself in. It's going to be all this whole laundry list of things that only you can do, which is not really the only you can do. And then, which I think it actually feeds back to a much larger issue. I mean, there's like there's sort of the surface thing of, well, no, because it's the way I do it. But I think it is a much deeper issue for us as women, as like, what is our self-worth coming from? Like if I'm not the one who can put the kids to bed, and I'm not the only one who can fold the laundry, then like, what is my self-worth? What is really my purpose in this relationship, in this family, and
Right.
the same, I see it's the same parallel as in business. If I'm not doing all the sales pages, and if I'm not making all of the phone calls, and if I'm not, what's my role in this business? And
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's so beautiful that you brought that up, and it's the control mechanism that makes you think that you're busy and that you're in control and that things are okay, but in reality, it's just stopping you from actually being the thing you're meant to be.
yeah, yeah,
So interesting. So
yeah,
interesting. Okay, let's talk a little bit about how health affects business because we have a lot of women in business listening to this, and a lot of us are trying to grow and shine, and this is our calling. But then there's like all this health stuff, and sometimes it's not, it's sort of like gets in the way.
so be more specific. What do you mean by health stuff? Like,
Well, I'd like you to just go in whatever direction you want.
okay. So when I hear you say that, so a few things come to mind. So first of all is what we spoke about beforehand about, what are the measures that we do to sort of keep ourselves healthy. We talked about like preventative testing or early detection, and we also talked about like, just regular habits like good eating and regular exercise as best as our ability, etc. Then there's the issue of, well, and that which also is the self-care, which is really, really important, which a lot of women, we as women, forget to do. But then there's also just like the specifics of like, what do we do when we're sick, and we run our own businesses. I don't know if this is what you were thinking of, but I know for myself, like, my husband was a salaried worker, and, you get sick days, and you work for
Right.
yourself. There's no sick days, So I cannot tell you how many women I know who just power through, and they're like, no, I'm like, let yourself be sick. Like there's a benefit. There's a reason that you got sick. Like being sick isn't this like failure. It doesn't mean, it means like for whatever reason, you're like, your healthy immune system was like fighting off something, and also it decided you needed to stop, you know?
Right. I feel like a lot of times we're sick just because we didn't stop early enough. Like I needed a rest. I needed to sleep, or I needed
Yeah.
to just to go out in nature and relax.
And relax.
Um
Yeah.
it's fascinating how our body knows how to do that even when we resist it.
Right, right. And sometimes it'll sort of force your hand if I mean, people always like, oh, I'll get a good night's sleep. I mean, it's hard for me to like, talk about sleep because I'm such a bad sleeper. Like I've never been a good sleeper. And I can't even tell you, like, I wake up tons at night. I'll be up sometimes like, sometimes it's like 5 minutes, sometimes it's like an hour. I'll read a book. Sometimes it takes me forever to fall asleep, whatever. Sometimes I wake up, like I try to wake up at 5:30 to start my day, but sometimes I don't because I've gone to bed, like whatever. Talk about the perfection thing. Like, so I don't want to like tell anybody we have to get enough sleep because I don't know. I just feel like that's, and then anyway, like in the middle of the night, you're woken up by the Houthi bombs anyway, like, which I hear, and, or the siren. So it's like, okay,
Yeah.
whatever. The
I
sleeping is,
slept right through the siren today.
yeah,
There was a
a lot of
siren.
people do. I don't even have a siren where I live, and I hear the booms in the air, and that wakes me up every
Yeah,
time.
my husband told me this morning. He's like, "You slept right through it." I'm like, "I'm so glad I did." But, when what I found when I started learning meditation and journaling, like I really got into it when I was pregnant with Eliezer. So we're talking like 4.5 years ago. Is the first time I got into meditation and journaling and guided meditations, things like that. And so I would wake up in the middle of the night, and I made it a rule that I don't touch my phone. And I'm only allowed, if I get out of bed, I'm only allowed to journal or
Yeah.
do a meditation. And it is amazing what wisdom comes out in the middle of the night when there's quiet and you're not allowed to be distracted and there's nothing happening and there's nobody pulling your skirt anywhere. It's just like focus. I had
And
the best.
you were able to have like coherent thoughts and write them down in the middle of the night. Like you felt like you were.
I filled my like books. You know, I get these journals and I filled pages and pages of ideas, of downloads, of thoughts, of processings. I teach this to my clients also, but there is something amazing that happens when you start to babble. Like you think you don't have coherent thoughts, but really you're just like at the edge of something really big. I think of it
Huh.
as like the faucet, after like a water outage, the
Yeah,
faucet sort of comes out like muddy and
brown and
weird.
smuttery. Yeah,
So what do? You turn it right off and you're like, no, no, you let it run.
yeah,
So the
uh,
same thing when you're journaling, you have to realize like the first couple of pages or the first couple of sentences are gonna make no sense. It's like I don't know what I'm feeling today. I'm just sitting here in the middle of the night, and I'm like, and I have no coherent thoughts, and I'm just gonna keep writing, and my handwriting is like all over the place
so
because
that's a question to you. Like, what do you think about like if you were on the computer? Do you think there's a difference between using the computer and writing, handwriting?
I totally believe that. I
Yeah.
totally believe that. There's you could look at my journals, and I'm up to journal number 15 now, ever since I started my coaching. When I hired my first coach, I committed to journaling, and not every day, not all the time, but just any thoughts I had about business and about life and about in general the process I'm going through. I made sure to go back to the same journal in order to have it all in one place. And that's like genius. Like if you had to hear this whole thing just for this, it was worth it. Because, when you have all these like small ideas and you write them down and you leave them somewhere and they're all over the place, it's very
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. True.
So that's when I committed. I have my 4 pillars thanks to the journaling. I have my calm method thanks to the journaling. I named my programs like Fly and Flow. And, now I have Balance for God's sake. Like everything is so amazing when you open up that channel of like just receiving downloads. Some people, I don't know if it sounds normal to people that I say like it's just a download, but yeah,
No, I totally believe that. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, that's
it
very
is what it is.
inspiring.
I'm just describing because I know for sure it didn't come from me. I didn't sit around thinking about it. It just came.
Hmm. I like
Yeah.
that. Because I,
Yup.
yeah.
Okay.
So,
We are at
yes.
time, and I feel bad keeping you here, and also the fact that we went on so many tangents. But I actually am really grateful we did.
Yes, I am too. It was very fun.
Okay, so we talked about a lot of things. Any last thoughts that you want to convey to our listeners? Do you want them to really like internalize before we wrap it up? And
I want to bring back the importance of making sure that you're taking care of yourself. I know it sounds like kind of cliche and I feel like, oh, people, self-care, which is a term my sister hates because she feels like it's very overused, but I cannot tell you how many times I have seen people in complicated health situations because they neglected themselves, because they were in crisis, or because they were really busy, or because they were focused on others, which are reasonable, but you really need to stop and what you said, like what what I can do and nobody else can do, and they're the basic things like taking yourself to get a mammography is something only you can do, like going to the doctor to check out something is like only you can do. It's not anybody else's responsibility. And I think that's like an important thing to remember and to just want to like stick that home, especially for women and mothers, and then the added joy of having your own business. So
yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. How can people find you? Where can they reach you?
I have my website is healthadvize.com. That's the name of my business, Health Advize with a Z. I know it's not spelled right, but long term. And on Facebook under Health Advize. I'm on LinkedIn under Aviva Yoselis. People can find me like that. Yeah, those are the best ways.
Cool. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for being here. Thank
Thank
you all
you.
the listeners for, having patience with me. And I'm so grateful that we are back. I am back, people.
We
Thank
are
God.
back.
Thank God. Yeah. So thank you so much. And don't forget to be connected for real.